And that actually what the right thing to do is to set up your institution to support the students that you have. Now, that is not popular. People are going to be very mad. Faculty are going to be very mad. There's a lot of reasons why schools don't do that. But if you just strip out all the history and all the reasons why schools are built the way they are and say, you guys, let's talk about the students we have. What do they in particular need? Which, Matt, you and I saw so much of this during COVID where people are like, they need to be able to rent bikes. We've got to have a bigger food pantry. We have to be able to, like all of the things where they were like, wait a second, Ivy League schools don't do that. Right. We have a different population. We are going to figure out what our students need in order to be successful. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cap and Gown. I'm Rachel Phillips-Buck, Senior VP for Student Success at Ferris Resources, joined today by our president, Matt Boisvert. Hey, Matt.
Hi, Rachel. Great.
It is May. We are looking at the light at the end of the tunnel, which for our friends in higher education is graduation, which fortunately is such a fun part of being in higher education. That's on the horizon. Your son is graduating, which I find hard to believe. I mean, not that he's graduating, but that he's old enough to graduate. So we have that. You guys do not forget Mother's Day is on Sunday. You still have time. Amazon can still deliver all your stuff. So don't forget. Let's see what else is going on. You remember that our Rhythm of the Academic Year theme for May is Finish Well. And Matt, I'm feeling a little bit of, I guess it's not spring fever. It must be like summer fever. Like I just have that little bit of excitement about like May, June, July, and August coming up, which is where we get to do so many fun conferences. We get to see so many of our friends and do personal travel. So I'm having a little bit of spring fever or summer fever. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, yes, I am looking forward. I know all of our listeners in higher ed, they're ready for that break. I really love the rhythm of an academic year. This is that time where you start thinking about like places you're going to go, people you get to see, take some time off, reflect. So that's really a fun time. And just thinking about graduation, Rachel, I was thinking back to, to me, it's kind of like watching the NFL draft where you see the families cheer on their, loved one who just made it, right? And at graduation, you just have these families who come from all over to celebrate their family and child, and that was always such a neat, just to be invited into that experience with my students and them inviting their parents over to meet me and all that. It's just a great time. It's like why you do what you do.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the best parts of higher education. Okay, sure. We are going some places this summer. Sorry, I'm choking a little bit, but I'm going to try to get this out. Our team will be at ACSD the first week of June. It's at Calvin University. So if you're going to be there, that will be fun. We're happy to spend time with you. And then I am going to a new conference, which is HECMA, which is Higher Education Case Management association, maybe. That is at the end of June. So if you're going to be at that one, love to spend time with you there.
I mean, one of our clients is presenting, right? Presenting with you or?
At ACSD, we are presenting together. Yeah, okay. That would be a good one to go to. Okay. Do you have anything else before we jump into the important stuff?
No, great job, y'all. The semester is almost over, and definitely a time to celebrate that and graduation.
For sure. I am really excited about today's episode because we're going to do a spring semester recap. And although I would love to take credit for how well crafted the arc of our semester was with all of our cap and gowns and how they kind of have built on each other, actually, that was just a happy surprise. There's there's not a lot of strategery on my side in terms of how those things fit together. But I will say they speak to the point that we're always trying to make, which is work that we are doing is about being present with our students. And actually, the work that matters most in higher education is relational. It is slow and it is largely invisible. So when we talk about workload and we're like, I'm just counting the things that you do, if we aren't uncovering, and here's what that means, and here's what that actually looks like, we haven't done a great job. So I want for us to revisit these episodes 8 through 14. And I just want to remind everybody about some of the sticky points that we made there. And I think at the end of this episode, we're going to have set you up really well for some summer projects, which I know everybody is thinking through. So our first episode, episode 8 in the spring semester, was with Dr. Woosley, which, you know, is always such a treat. She set the stage for this topic of unseen work, which is everything that we've just been talking about. It is this idea that you have to actually name what it costs people to do relational work, because otherwise you can fall into the trap where it's just a finger wiggle and we don't know what that is. They just do this thing. But instead, if you say, you have to understand that when I look like I'm not doing anything, actually what I'm doing is I'm setting me and my team and my students up for success, because there's this place where we've got to think through what's going to happen next. So she phrased that as physical, cognitive, and emotional effort required to do your job that other people can't see. And Matt, I really love the point that it makes you resentful both ways. So if you have a colleague who you're asking to do something that feels very simple and it takes them a long time, or it's not, when they give it back to you, it's not exactly what you asked for, you can feel really resentful. Like, I just asked you to do this simple thing, right? And maybe you don't understand everything that goes into that. And then vice versa. If somebody's like, hey, real quick, can you just, and you're like, that's a 7-hour project, right? Yeah. Then you feel resentful. You're like, hey, it's going to cost a lot. Is it that important? And I always really appreciate like our colleagues when they're like, I can give that to you, but it's going to take me 4 days. Okay, never mind. Forget it. Let's think of a better way to do it than that. So I think that's so helpful just to think about how we make that work more transparent. Anything to add about that?
Well, I just think you pretty well covered it. It's just helpful, I think, as a practice to both step back and consider all the work that was done behind the scenes by others that you're in, and also taking the time to articulate, to be able to, at least for yourself, right? It's like you and I were just talking, and I was like, you know, that's something that I could map out. Like I think I need to unpack that a little bit more, because there's just a lot more involved in this, right? And so both sides, I think you'll be a happier person at work if you take time to kind of really think out all of this unseen work that you do, and also have a little bit of grace and consider that perhaps the person you're waiting on is also doing a lot of unseen work.
Matt, you know, I think a perfect example of this, which I have told my family for a really long time, but I want to talk for just a second about grocery shopping. Just go grocery shopping, you know, all you have to do is just go to the grocery store and go grocery shopping. But I think when we start to unpack that, which is plan the meals, put it in order of like, first we do vegetables and then we do fruit and then we do bread, like put your list in order so you're not having to backtrack. Go to the store. Then, Matt, if you think about how many times you have to touch that apple, it's from the cart, from the bin to the bag, to the cart, off the cart, onto the conveyor belt, off the conveyor belt, into the cart, into the car, into the house, into the fruit basket. All of that is going grocery shopping. And if you haven't done it, how would you know that those are all of the things that lead up to that, right? So someone's like, hey, can you just really quick go grocery shopping for the family? And it's like, no, there's a lot actually that goes into that. So Sherry challenged us on that to pick 1 or 2 things and literally write down every step. And I said, I think managing referrals would be a great one. Okay, you get a referral. What's everything that you do? And then every time you meet with faculty, you tell them, here's the 25 things that I do every time I get a referral from you, so you can make that more transparent. Do you have something to say about grocery shopping?
No, I mean, that's well, yes, of course. But all I was thinking about is my early years, like the first time that I really went shopping for everybody. And I mean, it's like, I mean, I don't even know what aisle to go on yet. Right.
Right.
Like, so it's much more refined now when I think about the amount of time that I would spend going to the HEB compared to today. I've got it down, but
yeah, for sure. Okay. So we want to make our hidden work. We want to uncover that for everybody. The next episode, Matt, you and I did together, and it was really about naming our theme for the year. So remember 2026, our book is behind you, David Brooks, How to Know a Person. But our choice of theme was presence. And the reason we picked it is because as AI is so in the mix and everybody's talking about it, we want to underscore the fact that presence, being present with students, is really, really important. And to challenge our listeners, but also leadership and institutions, that the gains you get from being more effective and efficient with technology, if all you do is gobble those up, then with more and more tasks, instead of saying, wow, I maybe have gotten back 2 hours a week because of some technology or AI that I'm using. How do I want to use those 2 hours instead of then just being like, oh yeah, we'll just give you more students and you can see more students, right? So this idea of making good choices about what that efficiency buys you and how you spend it on your campus is so important. Because you were saying, you're right. There's a lot of vendors who will say, oh, it's fine. You can fire half your staff. You'll get more efficient. It'll be great. And what I would say is you misunderstand the work. You have defined the work as getting them a schedule or having a 15-minute meeting with them, when actually the work is being present with them, listening to what they have to say, and helping them on this journey.
I mean, right there, Rachel, that's where I'm like, ties back in then with this unseen work idea. Because I literally I was at a conference, walked by a competitor's booth. He was talking to a VP, and in their exchange, the VP was being told that he could have half as many advisors by using, and I was like, whoa. I don't want you to have half as many advisors. That right there is a undervaluing of the work that goes on face to face. And so exactly what you're saying, but what a huge opportunity. You could look at it through the lens of, this is a huge opportunity that I can actually like give my people who was very intentional to hire great people who love students and were very relational, give them more time to be able to engage their students. So
yeah. And it's, again, counting actions or counting students and not understanding what it takes. I mean, I struggle with this because in counseling, it's like, oh, then you go to counseling and then the counselor says something smart and then your life's fixed. And it's like, actually, you don't understand how that works at all. It's actually just two people sitting in a room together having a conversation about important things. If you think it is just they say a thing to you and solve your life, then why wouldn't AI be able to do that, right? So it's a pretty interesting idea that we've got to recapture what we gain by letting technology do transactional things, and then we use that time to be present.
Maybe we can come back and have another episode next year on this. But Rachel, I'm just thinking about services, and what services as people have we participated in that kind of fused in technology with other people and made the service better, right?
Oh, better, because I have a bunch of examples where it made it terrible.
That's right. We have a bunch of examples where it made it terrible, but at the heart of higher education is it is a service. It's an engagement with people. It's all, it's a service, and it's human centric for most of our universities, whether they know it or not.
I was just thinking about the conference that you and Callie and I went to, where we had to check ourselves into the hotel on our phone before we got there. And it was like pages of stuff that I had to fill out. And then when I got there, they were like, oh, yeah, let me just scan that really quickly. And I was like, I know that's easier for you, but it is not easier for me, where I have to fill this stuff out for an hour and a half before we even get there.
Yeah, it was
That
pretty bad.
That was pretty bad. Okay. All right. Our next episode, which was episode 10, which I was by myself, so it wasn't our best episode. But this is where we started in on our book. And he found it really important in the very beginning to talk about diminishers, 8 diminishers that make it hard for you to actually be present with people, to see people, to know about them. The 3 I think that we hit really hard in that episode was, first of all, sizing people up, which is reading a first generation indicator or a high school GPA and thinking you know the student's story.
Right.
That is a barrier to you being present with the person in front of you, because you're like, yeah, whatever, I know about you, right?
And tying it into the other, technology is going to do a terrible job. It's sizing, right? Like just rapid assumptions.
Yeah, for sure. The next one is objectivism, which is leaning so hard on your data trends that you stop asking the individual what's actually happening. And Sherry made this point in some episode, where she was like, you have to always read the open-ended questions, because you can look at the data and be like, oh, okay, I know about these students. But when you read the open-ended questions, that's when you find out, like, this student stayed on your campus because the Starbucks barista knew her drink and said hello to her every day. And if all you're doing is looking at data, you're going to miss that really important part of somebody who was present with the student. So I really love that idea of just persisting past the pat answer, I'm fine, it's fine, instead being like, hey, but let's spend some time together so that I can really understand that a little bit better.
Which will definitely encourage people to go back and listen. It wasn't a wah episode. No, I think it's very important, because if our goal is to be present and to connect with our students, the worst thing we can do are these things that maybe we're not even thinking we're doing.
Yeah.
But the idea of being a diminisher, what are the things that I'm doing that would take away from building up that student or having a better understanding of them or connection with them?
Yeah, I think it's so important. You know, I was thinking, one of the stories that I told in that episode was about one of our deans of students, who a student came and met with him for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and was like, hey, I remember when I was a freshman, you said if you need something, come see you. And they had this conversation. How's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And towards the end, our very wise student development person said to him, hey, tell me right now, what is weighing heavily on you? And the student was like, my dad died yesterday. And the student development person was like, okay, let's talk about it. Like, let's have this conversation of all of those things that are going on. But it came from his wisdom to say to the student, what's going on? You came in and said you're fine, but I need to know, like, what's heavy for you. And just because they went past the it's fine, they were able to then walk with the student in that piece. So I think so powerful. Yeah, super powerful. Okay, episode 11, back with our friend Dr. Sherry Woosley. And in this one, it's fun because we got to talk about the 5 things that an illuminator does. If you want to know somebody deeply, here's what you do. First of all, you show tenderness. So you have deep emotional concern for another person, which I love this line. It is hard to convey tenderness when you're harried, right? When you've got 52 things on your plate and somebody's like, hi, and you're like, hi, get out of my way. You cannot convey tender kindness towards them because you're preoccupied. Your brain is doing something else. Receptivity, overcoming your own insecurity long enough to let someone else's experiences in. I heard somebody say yesterday that you should listen. If you're in a disagreement, you should listen with the same passion that you speak, which I think is so interesting, right? Because it's like when you're trying to like make your point, you're like, yeah, but another thing. And then when the other person's talking, you can kind of be like, I'm going to tell them when it's my turn, instead of listening with the same intensity. Like, I'm trying to really understand what you're saying. So that idea of receptivity is important. Something to add to that?
No.
Okay. Active curiosity, asking questions because you genuinely want to know, not to win, not to gotcha, not to collect interesting stories, but instead because you really want to understand what is going on with this person. And I think we talked there about sometimes you can have people who have an unhealthy curiosity, which is they want gossip. They want to have all the things, and those people are not trustworthy. So you want to check that, how you're showing up with this active curiosity. Anything about that one?
I just think that's a hard one if you're not able to step back from all of the problems, all the things that are weighing heavily on you, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just experienced this on Sunday with my mother-in-law, where I was like, I've got a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of things that are in my head and things that I'm worried about and thinking about. But I was like, Matt, just slow down and be curious. And just, I actually learned a lot of neat things that are what's going on in her life and with my father-in-law. And so a lot of really good stuff that I having that practice of I'm going to just stop and start asking questions. And yeah, it was just because I wanted to hear what was going on.
Yeah, for sure. The second to last one is affection. And we talked about how for example, when you see your kids, what your face does just buys you so much grace to fuss at them later. Right? Because they see, I'm delighted by you. You are the most important thing to me. Every time you're around, I'm delighted. Also, put your dishes in the dishwasher, right? But it's a totally different approach than I am annoyed by you. I feel frustrated with you. You walked in the house and I'm going to start on the dishes. Instead, starting with affection. And I think that's tenderness too. Yeah. So much easier to get people on the same path. So I love that one. And then the last one is generosity, which is a charitable reading, which is, I assume you did this for a good reason. You said that for a good reason. You're feeling that way for a good reason, instead of assuming everyone's stupid and what's wrong with them, which sometimes is how I am when I'm driving, but I'm working on generosity. Matt, I'll say to you sometimes, like someone's speeding by and we're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, you know what? Maybe somebody's in the hospital. Maybe they've got to get to the hospital, or they have a little kid who they're like trying to get home because it's like reasons. There are reasons that we
they're late to work. And if they don't get there on time, they're going to lose their job, and that cascading. It's actually, I recommend this, making up these stories, because it just does make you more tender toward people who are driving poorly or people who, whatever happens in our elevators where you're like, what? Right. But if you just instead assume like, oh, there's a thing that if they don't do this, it could be catastrophic for them. Right.
Yeah. And I also would say part of that is it's not about you. This person didn't wake up and pass you on the right and drive 20 miles over the speed limit because they wanted to make you mad. They are not thinking about you at all. They have a whole other thing that's going on with them. And understanding that and just being able to be like, hey, I don't know what's going on with you, but I assume that you're in doing what you need to do. So yeah, I think that generosity is super important. All right, Matt. And then you were back with me for episode 12, which was so good, talking about how we can accompany our friends and family, but also as that relates to our students. So this accompaniment, remember, is you're floating in the river with them. You are not making any effort to guide them, to move them, you're just with them. and you're seeing the same things and you're watching what's happening, but you're not bossing people around. You're just accompanying them. And he talks about the energy you give off before you say a word. Are you a safe person? Are you a calm person? Can they trust you? Are you patient, or are you trying to rush them along? Do you have playfulness with them, or are you, strict and mean and like demanding? Are you focused on other people? And then do you just show up for people, which is what presence is about. It's not necessarily saying or doing the right thing. It's just being present with somebody. And I think I said in that episode to you, I had a really hard thing that happened in the last couple of months. And my friend, when I told her, she just got close to me and held my hand. Thank you. Because there's nothing you're going to say that's going to make this feel any better, right? What you want to do is just sit close to that person, show up for them, and be like, you're really important to me. I'm willing to stay close to you. Anything about that?
Well, I think, all of that is just so important, right? And it is the essence of our theme, right? It is a practice that a lot of times it's just very hard to put into practice, to take that time. But actually, it's all of these things. For me, it's like all of the things that we've talked about so far, stacking on top of each other, right? And so then it's when you work kind of through this practice of understanding all the unseen work that's going on, when you think about the how to see people, how to make sure that you're not diminishing them, but you're helping illuminate them, and all that takes you hopefully to a place where your heart wants to just, you're okay just being present with someone.
Right.
That you don't have an agenda other than I just want to be close.
Yeah. It's really funny. I just had this experience. I went to my parents' house, and my mom in our family is the cook. So like the kitchen is her domain. Like she and I don't cook together very often. In my house, I'm the cook, right? So the kitchen is mine. So this last time I went to see my parents, my mom was she was making dinner, a special dinner for my brother and his husband and our family. And it's not my kitchen. So it was so nice for me to be in the kitchen with my mom, because I really did just get to walk, like, Mom, what do you want me to do with this thing? And then she would say, I want you to do this. Or what are you doing to the lobsters? I'm doing this thing. A totally different attitude than if I were in charge of the dinner, which would mean I'm running, like I've got to run everybody, right? Or just sitting in the living room while my mom cooks, and I totally miss that. But instead, going in with, I just want to be close to you, and I will do whatever you tell me to do so that we can be in this room together and have memories, and I can learn things about how to cook lobster or whatever the case may be. Okay, we're on the home stretch. So episode 13, this one was really fun because remember, we switched over to our colleague Tori, and she told us about her experience in college, which was not a great experience. Came in deciding on her major still, not positive that she wanted to go to the school. She was in during COVID. She was taking online classes. She was telling us, like, there's all of these places where I thought about bailing out and I didn't. She went on to work in student success, which, we love those people in student success because they do such a good job. But what I think is interesting about her story is she said, I was desperate for someone to interrupt what I was doing and choose to know me anyway. Because remember, Matt, she would not, leading or lagging indicators, no one would have known. She was doing well academically. She wasn't acting out or doing crazy things. It was like she wanted somebody to interrupt this pathway that she was barely clinging on to and say, I want to know more about you and how can I be helpful to you, which I think is such a good reminder about how hungry students are, no matter who they are. We talk a lot about at-risk students, but even great students are very hungry to be known and be seen by their faculty.
Sure. I mean, thinking about you, the quiet students, those who, don't want to be in the way or a burden or feel like they're taking up space or time, right? And so again, I would say like, I, one, I was surprised at Tori's story, right? Because she's such a high achiever. She's excellent at what she does, and so hearing about that and thinking about like her being in that place and a lot of the kind of things that she was holding on to or struggling with alone in that. I think we have a huge opportunity. It goes back to what you were saying about the sizing up wrong. It's like, and so thinking about, and the other thing that you said, what a gift to say, hey, what's weighing on you right now?
Yeah. And that opportunity for him to be able to tell the truth about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt, we talked in Seek, our book that we did last year. We talked about making up stories, and usually we do it for bad things. Like, they're not calling me because they're mad at me, or they don't invite me to this thing because everybody likes it. Yeah. Or the reason they didn't say anything to me in the elevator is because they don't, whatever, which is all true. And we should be careful not to make up negative stories. But it's also true on the positive side. Like that person is fine until you know that that's true. It's just a positive story that you made up, right? I'm sure they don't have to. I'm sure nobody's worried about them. It's good. But until you dig into that, you actually don't know that their dad just died and they're looking for somebody to listen to them. So I like that idea of trying to unpack the stories that we're telling, positive and negative, and being curious about whether or not that's real or that's just a made up thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then our last episode that I got to do with Rozeboom last week, Dr. Rozeboom. Yeah.
The semester flew by.
I know. It for sure did. What was so nice about talking to Dave last week is him sort of unpacking for us this idea that you have academics and you have student development, and that they have to be working really closely together. Otherwise, our students experience a gap in care, in service, in support, and him just walking through the fragmentation of services on a campus and how sometimes they can be at odds. So we might have an advisor who's like, hey, it seems like 12 hours is really hard for you. I think maybe this semester you should take 10 hours. And then the student goes to financial aid and they're like, okay, but if you take 10 hours, it's going to affect your financial aid. So you have to definitely take 12 hours, right? And then you have Res Life that's like, well, if you're only going to take 10 hours, you can't live on campus. And all of those things are true, but they are so fragmented that a student ends up being like, I have no idea what actually I should be doing, versus somebody who has expertise to say, tell me all of the things. Let's look at this really holistically.
Yeah. So just thinking about the pinballing a student around, and you've said this before, this is where you just want to sit on the floor. You like throw your hands up and just sit on the floor and say, I don't know then. I don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone told me something else.
Yeah. And then also we talked in that episode about this idea of isomorphism, where you have institutions that are trying to gain prestige and credibility by fashioning themselves after Ivy League schools when they are not. Their student population is very different from the schools that they're trying to emulate. And that actually what the right thing to do is to set up your institution to support the students that you have. Now, that is not popular. People are going to be very mad. Faculty are going to be very mad. There's a lot of reasons why schools don't do that. But if you just strip out all the history and all the reasons why schools are built the way they are and say, you guys, let's talk about the students we have. What do they in particular need? Which, Matt, you and I saw so much of this during COVID, where people are like, they need to be able to rent bikes. We've got to have a bigger food pantry. We have to be able to, like all of the things where they were like, wait a second, Ivy League schools don't do that. Right. We have a different population. We are going to figure out what our students need in order to be successful. Childcare, right?
Yeah.
And we talked in that episode about what a fun exercise it would be to actually do that on your campus, to actually say, these are the students we have. If we were starting from scratch what do we think that we would want to build in so these students could be successful?
I mean, simple things like, when should we start classes? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
When should we have financial aid available? Like services, when should their office be open? You know?
Yeah, I can't remember if Lindsay said this. I just did this webinar with Wartburg, which was exceptional. Not just to be clear, I didn't say very much, which is why I can say it was exceptional, because they did an awesome job. But Lindsay, I think in that webinar was saying that they have a short course like that's happening right now, study abroad. So the way that their semester is set up is like, here's this time, which is kind of in between everything. And I loved it because they said what we found is we have athletes who can't do study abroad because they can't be gone. We have students who have to work all summer, so they can't spend a summer like just doing all of this. So we have found this 7-day period of time where we do study abroad, which means that we allow a lot of our students who typically wouldn't be able. That's what I'm talking about. Who are our students? What do they need? And how can we deliver that? Even if every other school is going to be like, we're not doing that. Why would you do that? Right.
Sure.
That works for the students. So I love that so much. Okay. Anything you want to add before I do our sum up?
No, I don't think so. I guess I am adding, but if any of these stood out and you haven't watched or listened to them, I mean, it was a great semester. And it is neat, Rachel, how they it all worked out as far as, really good. You did a great job with your guests, being able to fill them in at the right time. They had the right message at the right time. So,
and I'm so grateful for our guests always coming on and just being so honest and genuine and transparent and smart. We know some really smart people. So thank you guys for sharing those elements with us. I think what I'm really excited about is, our book spans into the fall. So we're going to keep going with that piece. And just continue to, what that book says is this is a discipline and it's a skill that you can develop and you can learn. So when we're in the growth mindset, we say like, we can learn how to see our students better, how to be more present with each other, with our students, with our friends and family. That's just a discipline that you can practice and learn. So I'm excited to continue on that journey. Also, I am full in summer fever now because this is our last episode for the semester. We take the summer off. We'll be back in the fall. So this is like my last class. This is like my last final that we're finishing right now before the summer stretches in front. Yeah. Thank you guys, as always, for joining us. We love talking about the good work that's going on in higher education, and so honored to be able to spend time with so many of you, just watching the way that you care for each other and your students. So thank you for that. Have a great summer. When we come back in August, we will be, it's our 7th season. So we will start season 7 in August.
That's amazing.
Thanks, friends. Bye.
Thanks, Rachel.